Amid sexual misconduct allegations, the Minnesota Democrat will make an announcement tomorrow. Franken denies the allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct. This comes as Congressman John Conyers, another top Democrat, stepped down from his post. CBS News political director Steve Chaggaris joins me now to discuss the latest from Washington. Steve, given the pressure we're seeing, can Senator Franken really survive this?
It doesn't look like he can. I don't want to predict what's going to happen in his remarks tomorrow, but the floodgates have opened, let's just put it that way. Democrats, it's over a third of the Democratic caucus has said he needs to resign. I'm sure we're going to hear from many, many more people. Apparently, Senate Majority Leader, Republican Mitch McConnell, is calling on Franken to step down as well. So again, the drumbeat is getting much louder for Al Franken. We'll see what he says tomorrow.
So let's walk us through this, Steve. If he were to resign, what happens exactly?
So in Minnesota, the governor would appoint a temporary replacement to his seat. The governor is a Democrat, so it wouldn't change parties. It wouldn't change the makeup of the Senate currently. And then there would be a special election, and they would tie it to the elections that are on the books next year. Interestingly, the other senator in Minnesota is up for re-election next year, Amy Klobuchar, so this would coincide with her election. You'd have a primary in August, and you'd have the general election in November. The difference is Franken's seat runs out in 2021, so whoever gets that seat next year would have to run for re-election again in 2020.
Are you surprised, Steve, at just how these Democrats have come together to show a difference of approach when you compare it to the RNC backing of Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore, despite the allegations against him?
Yeah, there's a couple of differences. First of all, it's going to put the Republicans in a really tough spot if Roy Moore does win, because the Democrats can say they took the higher ground here and they called on their guy to resign, and he did, whereas Roy Moore would get seated and become a senator after all these allegations. You still have plenty of Senate Republicans, first of all, who are not happy about Roy Moore staying in the race, and who are not happy about the idea of Roy Moore potentially becoming a senator. But at the same time, what you're hearing Republicans say, including Mitch McConnell, who is, again, not a fan of the Roy Moore scenario, but he said over the weekend, and I think you're going to hear this moving forward, is the people of Alabama have a choice to make next week on December 12th in the election, and if they send Roy Moore to Washington, given all these allegations, and then the people of Alabama have spoken. So it's hard to stand up against a vote. Franken has not been put up to a vote since these allegations have come out, so it's a little bit of a different scenario. I think the Republicans are going to some of them may lean on that and say, look, the people of Alabama have spoken despite these allegations.
I want to switch gears for a second, Steve, and talk to you about Senator Mitch McConnell reiterating his confidence on the GOP's tax bill today. Is that confidence well-founded? What are the issues that still remain?
Well, there's two separate bills, right? There's the House bill and the Senate bill they have to reconcile, and there's a couple of things they have to get through in there. First of all, they have to reconcile tax rates. They have to reconcile different deduction rates. There's a general sense on, is this going to be more helpful to corporations or more helpful to individuals? They have to reconcile some of those in there. And the big thing is, will the Obamacare mandate be repealed? That was in the Senate version, but not in the House version. Of course, all of this, any changes you make to these bills affects the bottom line. And there are some conservative Republicans who say if this is going to cost any more than what we agreed to, that could be a problem as well. So there are a lot of moving parts here. The Senate Republican leadership is quite confident, and on the House side as well, quite confident they can get this done before Christmas. They're talking about having this done potentially by December 22nd. So we'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of work in the next couple of weeks on this.
And Steve, we're just 2 days away from a potential government shutdown. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, so government funding runs out on Friday night. The plan at this point, at least the plan Republicans have set up, is to try to do a 2-week extension of that until December 22nd to try to come to agreement with, they need Democrats to sign on to these things in order to do the spending bills. And so they want to work with Democrats, but they think 2 more weeks will get them a little bit more breathing room to figure this out. But there's no guarantee that they can even get that 2-week extension. So there's the idea that potentially the government could shut down on Friday. You heard the president talk about that today, and he's already trying to blame Democrats, if the government does shut down, by basically saying they're the ones holding things up. Democrats want an agreement on immigration lumped into all of this. If you remember, protections for those children who are brought over to this country by their parents who came over illegally, that protection runs out in March. Democrats want a deal on that and want to tie it to whatever spending bill gets passed. And so the president is saying it will be the Democrats who are shutting the government down. And you heard, again, I mentioned Mitch McConnell. He's also trying to make the argument that it would also be the Democrats by saying, why are they trying to lump in immigration here? The expiration on that isn't until March. Why would you shut the government down for something that doesn't expire until March? So they're really trying to lay this at the feet of the Democrats. We'll see how this goes. We'll see if we actually get to the tipping point of a shutdown or not. But it could happen this Friday. They could do a 2-week extension. It could happen on the 22nd, or they could come to an agreement both times and they get a long-term spending bill set up.
We'll have to see how this shakes out. Steve Chaggaris, thank you very much for joining us, Steve.
Thanks.